Good morning, Board Chair and members of the board. My name is Crystal Robinson. I'm the Klamath Watershed Program Supervisor, and I'll be presenting today on behalf of the department. Next slide. I'd like to begin with a brief summary of this presentation. I'll first review the trustee role of the department and then present an update on the status of fish in the Scott and Shasta this year. I will also discuss some of the information we have regarding the fish response to dam removal conditions that were experienced this fall during migration. Next, I will present information related to the current emergency Instream flow recommendations and the conditions we're seeing on the ground for habitat and fish in both rivers. I'll then provide a background on CDFW's role in local cooperative solution determinations of equal or better using French Creek as a case study. As trustee for California's Fish and Wildlife Resources, CDFW has jurisdiction over the conservation, protection, and management of fish, wildlife, native plants, and habitat necessary for biologically sustainable populations of those species. The Scott and Shasta rivers are currently being monitored for adult salmonid escapement. CDFW operates video weirs at the mouth of the Shasta and at approximately River Mile 18 on the Scott. Carcass and red surveys are occurring with our cooperators both upstream and downstream of the video weirs to collect biological information as well as spatial distribution. All estimates are preliminary. We currently have 599 Chinook salmon through the Scott. This is below the 1978 to 2023 mean value of 4,758 spawners. We will be revising this estimate to include data collected in the 18 miles downstream of the video weir. We are expecting a low return of Chinook salmon this year, and the closure of the commercial and the recreational fishery was a reflection of that. As for coho salmon, approximately 706 have passed through the counting station so far. The 2007 to 2023 mean for this species is 716 spawners. This brood year returned to spawn in the fall of 2021 and was 852 adults for comparison. This brood year of coho salmon is also the first to have completed a full life cycle within the Scott and Shasta emergency regulation. The Shasta River has had 4,944 Chinook salmon enter the watershed to date. This is near the 2007 to 2023 mean value of 6,554 spawners. As for coho salmon, the Shasta has a 22-year mean of 95 spawners and a 9-year mean of 46 spawners. To date, we've had 41 coho salmon through the Shasta River video counting station. Steelhead escapement for the 24-25 season will be reported in the end of season report, and we have no preliminary estimates available at this time. Last January, removal of the remaining 3 hydroelectric dams on the Klamath River began. Coffer Dam breaches started in late August, and the final breach of the Iron Gate Coffer Dam occurred during the first week of October. The river experienced several events of increased suspended sediment with associated decreases in dissolved oxygen during this large restoration project. CDFW worked with basin fishery managers on assessment of water quality, fish health conditions, and management options throughout the process. We know that fish have evolved with sediment. Adults are equipped to quickly seek out better water quality conditions, and the tributaries to the Klamath during dam removal were offering refuge to those conditions. We also saw changes to main stem water temperatures when compared to historic trends. This was an expected change and predicted in post-dam temperature modeling. Water quality conditions in the main stem created what we believe was a potential shift to the migration run timing of salmon in the Scott and Shasta, and I will describe this more on the next slide. Next slide. CDFW's fish counting station has been collecting data on both rivers for the last 22 years. We provide weekly reports on both adult and juvenile population estimates as migration and emigration is annually occurring from the Scott and Shasta. In that report, we include the graph you can see on the right of this slide that compares the cumulative in-season total to the minimum and maximums of the 20-year data set, as well as the mean and the median. This particular example is for the 2024 Shasta River Chinook salmon. This information was used to determine the migration timing shifts listed for each species on this slide. You can see a clear shift in timing for Chinook entering the Shasta when compared to the mean and median. Coho timing appeared to shift by approximately 2 weeks from that mean and median. The Scott River timing shift for Chinook salmon was about 1.5 to 2 weeks later than the mean median. but the coho salmon migration timing did not appear to shift from that median mean. CDFW plans to continue these monitoring efforts, and future data will help inform our understanding of migration timing under a new baseline with the lower 4 dams on the Klamath now removed. Next slide. Next, I will present some of the results on implementing the current emergency in-stream flow recommendations in the Scott and Shasta for the past 3 years. We conducted fish surveys at summer base flows, which is after the snowmelt period in June or July through the start of fall rain. We also conducted surveys in both Shasta and Scott River reaches since we have good landowner access there, and our partners are conducting surveys and providing information in other locations of both watersheds. The canyon flow gauges on both rivers are also the minimum in-stream flow compliance point and therefore important locations to evaluate fish response to these flow targets. The Scott River Canyon is the lower 21 miles of the watershed downstream of the USGS Fort Jones Gauging Station. This area is diverse in habitat features and annually has spawning and rearing by salmonids. First, for species clarity, we refer to juvenile trout as omicus since we are unable to determine if they are steelhead or resident trout at this life stage. The last 2 years, we conducted an adult dive survey of the entire canyon and are now annually identifying adult steelhead as well as spawning adult Pacific lamprey present in early August in the Scott River Canyon. For the past 3 years, CDFW has been conducting base flow fish surveys in the Shasta River as well. We have identified presence of omicus all 3 years in the canyon. In the last 2 years, crews increased survey efforts and have documented Chinook salmon residing in the canyon through base flow. In 2022 and 2023, CDFW surveyed the Big Springs complex and documented omicus but no salmonids. In 2024, we focused our efforts in the canyon due to concerns over the base flow threshold. However, the department funded the Karuk Fisheries Program to survey the CDFW Big Springs Ranch. Karuk Fisheries staff surveyed through the end of June and identified only omicus at base flow. The last Chinook salmon seen in Big Springs was in March. No coho juvenile salmon have been identified on snorkel surveys in either the Shasta Canyon or the Big Springs complex for the past 3 years of these surveys under the regulation. After seeing Chinook salmon rearing every week in the canyon, we decided to seek out microhabitats that may be supporting them during times of day when the water temperatures are high, acknowledging thermal refuge may exist. Survey crews noted deep pools with little visibility, and we tested the theory that they could be potentially stratifying. Water pool stratification is the process by which a body of water forms distinct layers with different properties such as density, temperature, salinity, or oxygen. We were able to instrument a few pools with temperature probes at the end of August, and we did see a difference between the top and the bottom of the pool noted on the graph depicted here. Additionally, we surveyed an area known as Salmon Heaven. This habitat is complex, containing several side channels and cold water seeps. The map on the left of this slide depicts some of the important microhabitat features noted by crews in that area. We visited the site at 50 CFS and noted there was no connection between the main stem and this side channel. We revisited at 70 CFS later in September and found the side channel and the cold water seeps were accessible to the main stem fish at that flow. Next slide. We wanted to discuss why CDFW feels that 50 CFS in the Shasta Canyon is the right minimum drought flow target. First is our reliance on the best available science. We have a citable, peer-reviewed flow study specific to the Shasta Canyon. The McBain and Trush 2014 Shasta River Canyon study recommended an in-stream flow need of greater than or equal to 50 CFS for a dry year scenario from July 1st through September 14th. Given the volcanic spring system of the Shasta watershed and the stable base flows, we relied on the dry year scenario flow target as our recommendation during the drought regulation process. We also have evidence through implementation of the current emergency regulation of temperature reductions documented by the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board, as well as salmonid presence documented by CDFW throughout base flow and identification of cold water habitat features. To elaborate, the Regional Water Board staff analyzed water temperatures for the 2022 summer season during implementation of the regulation. Analysis showed reduction to Shasta Canyon water temperatures during curtailment of high-quality spring water from junior water right holders. Additionally, CDFW Shasta Canyon fish surveys documented salmonid presence through the summer during regulation implementation, as I spoke of on the previous slides, for the past 3 years. On the next slide, I will talk about the flow fluctuations experienced during base flow and our concerns as to protections for fish. These 3 USGS Shasta at Wairika hydrographs depict the fluctuations in river flows experienced during the implementation of the emergency regulation from 2022 through 2024. The dark red line on each of these graphs is the 50 CFS flow minimum for the Shasta River Canyon from July 1st through September 14th. Flow drops below 50 are of concern to the department, as this is our bare minimum needed to sustain the fisheries through drought, according to the best available science. We are concerned that a lower flow threshold is not scientifically justified, and implementation will potentially experience these same sort of flow fluctuations, resulting in even lower flows for the Shasta River during this critical time of year for fish. Next, I will present information regarding the continued use of local cooperative solutions. Next slide, please. Under the current regulations, surface water irrigators or groups of surface water irrigators can submit to CDFW a local cooperative solution as a means for reducing water use or to preserve minimum flows, or to provide other fishery benefits in lieu of curtailment. CDFW carefully evaluates each of these proposals individually to determine if the LCS proposed is equal or better to the Instream benefits realized during curtailment. During the summer of 2024, CDFW worked with the Scott and Shasta Watermaster District on French Creek to develop a sub-tributary-wide LCS. This is an example where negotiations resulted in a slightly low flow threshold in exchange for landowner access to evaluate habitat and fish usage through an area of river that historically was isolated pools through base flow, holding thousands of juvenile coho salmon. There were flow benefits in this LCS over the pre-regulation baseline, and we also recognized that the flows negotiated may not have been equal or better to French Creek flows under curtailment. However, we wanted to understand the condition of habitat and salmonids under a 3 CFS flow threshold in September, which we've never been able to evaluate, and this knowledge was considered a benefit to the fishery. CDFW will continue to evaluate LCSs in a way that allows for evaluations of reduced water use, preserving minimum flows, and other fishery benefits, recognizing the flexibility within the regulation for CDFW determinations of equal or better. Thank you for the time to present this information today, and in closing, the Governor's California Salmon Strategy for a Hotter, Drier Future directs work to begin on the establishment of minimum in-stream flows for the Scott and Shasta rivers, as well as to work with local groups on solutions and options to incentivize the reduction of surface water diversions and groundwater pumping in these basins. And so CDFW will continue to work with the State Water Board staff and local partners to support the development of baseline minimum flow requirements in both of these rivers. We also recognize that LCSs may be a valuable tool for future consideration at meeting these thresholds. Additionally, we are looking forward to collaborating with all partners in both watersheds and providing information on the scientific basis report. Thank you.